So I have asked for an assistant this morning. Pardon me, I'm just going to get this out of our way. And some of you have received, all of you have actually received the survey that we put out. It's not a survey. That's my first mistake. There were 4 questions, and it was a gratitude inquiry in your inbox. It was in our newsletter as well as direct email, and really came about from a genuine desire for us to connect with what is making the most difference for you through Unity and through what we're doing here at Unity Spiritual Center Denver. And particularly as we move into the next year, what do we want to be sure we're doing, maybe not doing, that sort of thing. And so one of the respondents that participated, I enjoyed listening to her, and I have had her in a couple of classes. I'm going ahead of what I should be saying, but we'll figure it out. Thea Washington. So I said, Thea, would you, I know they're clapping already. Woo! I said, would you be willing to share a little bit about, what you shared in that survey and what I've just seen happen for you and in you since I've known you here. You've been a member not quite a year, right? Just a few months ago. Okay, well, let's get you up here. But just for comfort and conversation. And the other thing that we are interested in is hearing more. So if this is something that interests you and something that is alive in you, like this has made a difference for me, and I'd share that. 5 minutes or less, nobody faints, nobody gets hurt.
No, except me.
No, you're not going to get hurt. So welcome, Thea. Thank you for being here. And how did you actually come to Unity of Denver? Yeah.
I think like a lot of people, I've been searching in my life for a spiritual home that had some meaning for me and that reflected some of my own beliefs. And so a couple of years ago, my best friend Mike invited me to come to Unity with him one Sunday. And I said, okay. I knew about Unity, but I hadn't really delved into the beliefs. So a couple of years ago, I came, and I liked what I heard. I liked what I saw. I liked the people. I loved the music. And I thought, this makes me feel like maybe what I believe isn't quite so weird after all. So I kept coming, and I remember the first time I came here, whoever was handing out the programs in the back said, "Oh, you're new?" And I said, "Yes, this is my first time here." And he said, "Well, I hope you come back." And I kept coming back. So
right. Good work, Usher.
So a few months ago, I decided that it was time to really publicly invest my resources, whatever they might be, into this congregation. So I joined and became a member.
Wonderful.
So that's how I got here.
And so you become a member, and then do you think, oh, here comes a survey? What did you think when you opened that?
Well, the funny thing about the survey, the word which we will not use, but we'll use
inquiry.
It a lot. The inquiry is that on my job, that's what I do. I collect information from the people that we serve. I work at Mental Health Center of Denver, and we have a lot of people who come in and they want to see their case managers and their therapists and their psychiatrists and receive services. And my job, one of my jobs, is to collect information from them about how well they think their staff person, their case manager, psychiatrist, therapist, whoever, is doing their job. So when I saw the survey, the inquiry, in the newsletter, the first thing I thought was, I cannot handle this. I do this all week long. I cannot do this again, so I'm just going to skip it. And then I started thinking, this is important. It's important for the church to know what the members are thinking about what we do here. And so it only takes a couple of minutes, so I decided, oh yeah, okay, I try to get people to do this every day on my job. Now I know how they feel.
Great. Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll do it.
Thank you.
And filled out the
Yes.
questions and sent them back in.
Yes. And so, what do you think, and you shared some of it in your survey, but how have the unity beliefs changed your life, your sense of spirituality?
Well, I think like a lot of people who grew up in church, church had a very definite definition in our lives. Church and spirituality meant things like the person, who was usually a he, standing up in the pulpit, reading Holy Scripture and leading prayers, and it was about the rituals, the communion. But God was always external. God was out there somewhere. And the problem with that kind of spirituality for me was that when you left the church, you left your spirituality behind in the church instead of bringing it out into what we thought of as our real life. So that's what made me think that I was disillusioned. Something wasn't right about that. So now I come to unity. After my searching, I come to unity. And I hear what I believe, that God is everywhere, always present, always omniscient, all-knowing, all-powerful, but that God is within us, the Spirit is within us, and we express that in our lives. So that's how my spirituality changed as I learned more about unity beliefs.
And you were grateful because it changed your work experience, as I
Yeah,
recall.
it changed my life in two ways. I was in, not your group,
Eye of the Storm.
I was in Eye of the Storm, that was your group. And then I was in the Spiritual Economics 2 groups. There's so much in there. Have you ever read Eric Butterworth? Eric Butterworth's books are so rich, just want to highlight and underline everything he's written in there. So I was in spiritual economics, and it dawned on me that this wasn't a book about the spirituality of economics only. It was a book about the economics of consciousness, what consciousness is and why it's important and what it does and how to use it. So as I started thinking about that, I started thinking about bigger pictures of things. And it dawned on me that my job at MHCD is really the job of the universe. It's the same job. Get people what they need and let them have what they want. And in my little sphere of influence and authority, that's what I do on my job. And that's what God does for us. Gives us what we need, even though it may not look like what we need at the time, and lets us have what we want, although that might not look like what we want it to look like at the time. But as I thought about that, it dawned on me that that's the mission of humanity. Get people what they need and let them have what they want. So it changed the way I do my job, because as I began to see that and began to see the unity belief that God is in everyone, it changed the way I look at the people that I work with, the people that we serve at MHCD. They come in with a whole collection of special needs, and it's easy to see them as different from me. But with unity beliefs, it's come to me that they're the same as me. We just have different types of challenges in our lives.
Right.
But we're all alike. We're all the same. So that was one way it changed. The second thing it changed was, as me expressing myself, I started thinking about, now, what is God expressing through me? And when I came here 2 years ago, some of you who knew me then know that I was even larger than I am now. I'm a large woman, but I was even larger then. And as I started thinking about God expressing through me, I started thinking about my health. And last year, in thinking about that, as I became more aware of unity beliefs, I decided it's time to do something about the weight. So, over the past year, I've lost 110 pounds. So now, I have a shape. Instead of like that, I go like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, you staying?
I think there's one more question.
Oh, there's one more.
I have my crib sheet
This
here.
is the Oprah show. This is no David Letterman. We are going deep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, what you're saying is all stuff that we can relate to, I think, right? It's like the expression
That's
of
good.
what we teach here working in through your life
Yeah.
as positive, practical.
Purpose, exactly.
Yeah.
Positive, practical purpose. And that's the thing that I'm most grateful for here. As I started thinking about, first, of course, I started thinking about all the activities that we do, the Sunday service, newsletter, David, the small groups. That's what really stood out for me. The small groups, those are the things that I appreciate the most, because those are the things, those are where I really get to know people. Because, knowing all of you at once is like really hard. So I get to see people week after week and get to know their names and know who they are. And I'm reading some incredible material that's making a difference, like I said, in my work life and in my health, my personal life. So that's what I'm most grateful for. And what that does, what Unity has done, what the small groups have done, is sort of serve as an introduction to myself for me, who I am and whose I am and what my consciousness is about, which was the concept that took me a long time to grasp. But it's the sum total of everything I think, everything I feel, everything I know, the way I perceive everything. That's what consciousness is for each of us. So it's been an introduction of me to me, and that's why I love the small groups so much, and I would recommend them to all of you because they are an amazing experience. They fill in the gaps of what you thought you knew. So
Yes.
I like that.
Thank you, Thea.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Good. I think this concludes the sermon. Excellent work. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I have just a few minutes, and of course, I just need to tell you that I myself have had this amazing growth in the concept of gratitude through the work of Unity, and specifically as laid out through Eric Butterworth. And I will tell you that, has anyone ever had that experience where you're kind of in it, you're struggling with something? Let's not pick anything, just your hip is hurting. And it's been hurting since you moved in June. And you're kind of beginning to fixate on it and think, wow, we were just talking the other day how 70 is the new 50. Right? Because like in our generation, when my grandparent was like 65, it was like, ooh. And she was aging and she couldn't get around. And both my grandmothers died in their early 70s. And now 70-year-olds are like, nothing. So as I did the math on that, I thought, oh, I'm going to be in a world of hurt if this hip that I'm making up, this issue. But then, so you're really present to this thing. Let's go ahead and call it my hip hurting. And someone says, you ought to just be grateful. You ought to, have an attitude. Do you have an attitude of gratitude? No, I get an attitude about gratitude at that point, right? And that's totally missing the mark. But I had to look at that because to some degree, at the surface level, it meant that I wasn't addressing what was real. And the truth was, my hip hurts. And so it felt like a little Pollyanna-ish, or just think a happy thought. I thought about my mom, whenever you'd want that extra toy, and she'd say, you're lucky to have a house to put the toys in. Gosh, so I tried. Okay, I'm lucky to have a hip. Do we keep hips from people? I'm thankful to have a hip. And so I said that, that's not what this teaching is saying. I'm grateful to have a hip that hurts. No, I thought of Myrtle Fillmore right away, and I got that grasp in a bigger way. She was not saying, so the co-founder of the Unity Movement, Myrtle Fillmore, is notorious for having healed herself through prayer and meditation of the effects of TB. And she didn't say, I could guarantee you, thank you, God, for the TB. Thank you for this limiting, crippling, painful condition. No, she got above that and recognized that flow of life, of God, of all wholeness, all that we can think God to be, of wisdom, of health, of wholeness, of just pure life force. And connected with that and came to that condition with gratitude for that life force going through her. So it's very different, right? So I thought of it that way, and I do recognize and I do believe that we are all expressions of that pure life, that pure wholeness and health and vitality. All that wants to live through us, all that we can imagine God to be, is our source. And so if I connect to that, did my hip immediately feel better? No, I wish I could tell you it did. But I wasn't as fixated on it, right? You get so fixated on it. Oh my gosh, I'll be right there. Oh, I'm so grateful. So I was elevated out of the level of the issue, back to the fullness of our consciousness, fullness of the potential of who we are. And from there, I really did go about things differently. In fact, the very next day, I went on a bike ride, 15-mile bike ride. And I thought that morning, I've got this hip. No, I love to ride my bike. So I went out on the bike ride, and again, I'm thinking, I didn't have a hip problem. I was thinking of this issue of gratitude, this concept of gratitude, and I've missed some of his wonderful quotes, but I recognize that when I'm at a totally different place in my gratitude for cycling, because I love to cycle, but I'm not fast. It took me years to have a good bike. I don't have the body that should be wearing those shorts. All of that. And for years, I fixated on that, right? I'd get on that bike, and then there'd be people passing me, and they were cuter, and they were faster, and they had better bikes. And I was out of the experience. And on Thursday, I was just so practicing this. What do I love about it? It's so freeing. I can go my own pace. I'm out in nature. I live in a state that it's 70 degrees on Thanksgiving. Takes me to a totally different level of experiencing the experience. And people still passed me, by the way. Oh, yes. But that's all right. That's not where my focus was. That's my earring. I'm sorry about that. Ken, you should have told me about that. So this is how Eric Butterworth says it, and I finally got it from this level. He says, first of all, we're not ignoring anything. This is not to say that you should give thanks for a job that is unpleasant he's again speaking from a level of prosperity, but we're talking about prosperity in health, in relationships, all of that. So he says, this is not to say that you should give thanks for a job that is unpleasant or for the last penny if your supply is totally inadequate. That would be to kid yourself and to be intellectually dishonest. So that's where I stopped before. The job is not a symbol of misfortune, and the penny is not a symbol of lack. Both are evidence of the activity of spirit manifesting in part. So you give thanks not for these things, but from the awareness that there is always an all-sufficiency, even within the insufficiency. So now I'm addressing that I'm not just denying, right? I am coming above that. He says, again, always get the view from the top. Before you react in negativity to people, conditions, or things, take a moment to lift your eyes upon the hills. Contemplate all of the changing, challenging experiences from the highest possible point of view, regardless of the appearances of conflicts or limitations. See all things from the awareness of the allness of life and the ever-presence of substance. From this view, from the top, you will see things creatively leading to an attitude that is constructive and optimistic. So, the last quick thing that I was doing in that last cycling thing was the comparative. If I started to be grateful, like I've grown out of this, I swear. I would have to immediately, in focusing on what I'm grateful for, I would sort of think, but I don't have that, and I didn't do that. I mean, it would be right there. I couldn't really just be in what I did have, what I had done, right? It was what I should have done, what they did, how they knew. So he calls that, he's got a fix for all of this. It's as if he studied me. He says, some people, realizing the importance of a grateful heart, begin looking for things for which to give thanks. No problem, that's what I was doing. However, they mistakenly start with the perspective of inadequacy and insufficiency, and thus they simply become more conscious of limitation. The result is that instead of counting their blessings, they count their envies. Yes. And then what do we get? We just get more of that. We just get more present to what they have and what we don't have, or what we should have done, or what we could have been, right? That's the law that we're talking about, is the creative use of our mind. It really informs our experience, creates our experience, guides our experience. So, taking all of that into consideration, I have a good attitude about gratitude, and I'm happy to share it with you today. I appreciate Thea and her sharing her wonderful message and what she is grateful for.